OSPF authentication in NX OS. In this video, I'm going to talk about the OSPF authentication types in NX OS and how we can configure the OSPF authentication for securing the OSPF neighborship in NX OS. You know that in the previous video, I configured OSPF without authentication. For example, we can using this command, router config or switch config in NX OS. Okay, switch config, and then router OSPF tag. After that, for example, we will go to the switch config router, and here we can configure the router ID, for example, and after that we can configure the OSPF on interfaces. Look at here, switch config if we use the IP router, okay, OSPF, then tag, after that area and area ID. This is the minimal configuration of the OSPF in the NX OS. And as you saw, I didn't configure any type of authentication in the previous scenario, but now I'm going to configure authentication. Okay, because of that, we have one type of authentication. We call it type 0, and type 0 of authentication means no authentication or null. Okay, no authentication is type 0 in the OSPF, but we have type 1 authentication in the OSPF, and in type 1 we are using the clear text authentication. This is not a strong method for authentication. This is a weak method, and we shouldn't use the clear text. But because I'm going to show you how you can configure all type of the configuration in this video, I will show you first clear text authentication, then another types of the authentication. How we can configure the clear text authentication. Don't forget that this method is not secure, and it's better to do not use this method. Okay, very good. How we can configure the authentication in clear text? This is a multiple step or 2 steps process. The first is that you should go to the interface mode, switch config if, and using these 2 commands, IP OSPF authentication means that I need to authentication with clear text, and after that the second command is that IP OSPF authentication key and then key. Okay, you should configure these 2 commands on the switch config if mode. And don't forget that this method is available in the iOS also with the same commands. We can use these commands are in the iOS, and also these commands are available in the for example NX OS. And the next method of authentication is type 2. Okay, type 2 authentication is the authentication with the hashing, and we use the MD5 in the hashing. Look at here, message digest authentication or hash-based authentication. Okay, you can use hash-based authentication with 2 methods: IP OSPF authentication, message digest. Okay, then you can use IP OSPF message digest key, key ID, MD5, okay, key string or key, for example. IP OSPF message digest key 1 MD5A, IP OSPF message digest key 2 MD5B. Okay, we can use these commands, this process, IP OSPF message digest key, for using the multiple key, and you know that OSPF uses the youngest key. Okay, in this video I'm not going to delve into the detail of topics, because if you want to learn the detail of topics, you should verify, you should watch the OSPF a video in the iOS, okay, in iOS, and many of topics is same between the iOS and NX OS. In this series, we are going to delve into the detail of configuration and some differences between the NX OS and also iOS. Okay, because of that, now we can configure these two methods, and also don't forget, here we have another method for using the type 2 hash base, and that is using the keychain. Okay, you can use this command IP OSPF, okay, authentication, then IP OSPF authentication keychain, and then keychain name or chain name. You should first configure a keychain such as the keychain of EIGRP, and then using this command. Don't forget that you should first enable the message digest authentication, and after that you can use this command for using the keychain. And for example, in keychain you can use the send lifetime, accept lifetime, and some other features. Okay, let me starting the configuration. Step by step we can configure the scenario and learning many things about this scenario. Here we have two NX OS, NX OS 1, NX OS 2. In this scenario, I'm going to configure OSPF on the over the interface VLAN. Okay, here in the NX OS 1, okay, I want to configure interface VLAN 1, okay, interface VLAN 1 with the IP address of 10.121/24, and we have another interface VLAN 1 on the NX OS 2 with the IP address of 10.122, okay, and after that we can configure OSPF between them, starting from the NX OS 1. The first things that we should configure is the host name. Host name is switch 1 for the switch 1. And then first we should enable the interface VLAN feature, because if you are using the interface VLAN command, we don't have this command now. First we should enable the feature interface VLAN. After that we can configure the interface VLAN. Interface VLAN 1. The IP address of this interface VLAN, as I mentioned before, is 10.121 with the mask of 24, and then we should enable this interface, no shutdown. Also, we can configure interface loopback 0. Okay, this is the interface loopback 0 with the IP address of the quad 1/32, and finally we can check the interfaces enabled in this switch. Show IP interface brief. Now we have two interface VLAN 1 with the IP address of 10.121 and interface loopback 0 or with the IP address of the quad 1. So easy. And after that we can go to the NX OS 2. In the NX OS 2 conf-t hostname switch 2, okay, interface VLAN 2. We don't have interface VLAN because we didn't enable the feature interface VLAN. And after that, we can configure the interface VLAN 1 with the IP address of 10.122/24, and then no shutdown. And also we have another interface loopback 0. IP address is quad 2/32. That's it. Show IP interface brief show us that we have two enabled interface. First, we should check the connectivity between the switch 1 and also switch 2. Ping, for example, 10.122, the IP of interface VLAN 1 in the NX OS 2. Yes, we have connectivity. And after that, we can configure the OSPF without any type of authentication. First, starting from the switch 1, conf-t, okay, you know that in the NX OS 1, in the first switch, we can't configure the OSPF because we didn't enable the feature OSPF. Look at here, router OSPF A, for example. We can't configure. Why? Because we didn't enable the feature OSPF. Now we can configure the OSPF router OSPF tag A, for example. Router ID is quad 1. Okay, and after that we should use the, for example, I don't want to configure authentication at the first step. Because of that, I'm going to interface ETH11 and using this command IP router OSPF A area 0. Okay, IP router OSPF IP router OSPF A area 0. Why the OSPF didn't enable? Why? Because we should configure a OSPF in this scenario on the interface VLAN 1. Okay, interface ETH11 is a switch port interface. Interface VLAN 1